Okay, so before we can start quilling, we're going to need to cut our strips. I have my colors here that are based from my personality quiz results. I have orange, blue, and pink. These guys are going to be the main colors that I'm going to use in my self-portrait. Here I'm stacking 3 sheets of paper on top of each other. Since we're going to be cutting with our X-Acto knives, we typically can cut only about 3 sheets at a time. The blade can't cut through more. So to do this, we're going to be using our ruler, an X-Acto knife, and a thin marker. We want to be able to see the lines that we're measuring out, but we also don't want them to be visible when we're gluing down our quills, so make sure you're using a thin marker and not a thick one. Okay, so to start, we are first going to take our 3 pieces of paper. We're going to line them up so that we know all of the edges are perfectly lined. This way we make sure that all of our cuts are going to be a nice perfect 1/2 inch. So I have my 3 papers stacked on top of each other. I take my ruler. I'm going to start on the 0 inches side, and I'm going to line that up with the edge of the paper. So I see the line of the 0 mark with a line of the edge of the paper. I'm going to try and make a straight line with my ruler, and I'm going to start marking my paper every 1/2 inch. So I just marked an inch. Now I'm going to do a 1/2 inch, an inch, inch and a half, 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 3 inches. Sorry about my hair. And I'm going to do this all the way to the edge of my paper. So now I have a 1/2 inch marked on every 1/2 inch until I got to the edge of my paper. So I have that, and I'm not going to just start cutting now. I'm going to take it down to the bottom and do the same exact thing. And I'm doing this because I want to make sure that every strip that I cut is going to be a perfect 1/2 inch, so that when I'm gluing down my quills, I don't have some quills that are taller than another quill. Okay, so I'm going to take my ruler all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to measure out those 1/2 inches again. So I do a 1/2 inch, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and I'm going to continue this all the way to the edge. I made sure that my 0 was lined up perfectly with the edge before I even started, so that I know that the top marks that I made are going to be the same exact marks that I'm making on the bottom of the paper. So I don't have to do this to all 3 slices of paper because I know that I'm going to be cutting just the top slice, and it's going to go all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line it up with those first lines that I made on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to take my X-Acto blade. On my blade you see that there is an angled side, that's where the blade is, and then there's a flat side, that's not where the blade is. The blade is sharp, you don't want to touch it, okay? The flat side you can touch, but I don't recommend doing it. So the blade's pretty sharp, so I recommend keeping your fingers below this line right here. Okay, if your finger is below this line, you're not going to have any pressure on your blade and you're not going to cut yourself. Okay, so that's how I know that I'm safe, when I keep it below this line. If I put my finger past the line, I'm going to have a lot of pressure when I cut, and I'm probably going to cut myself or someone near me, and that's not fun. So just keep your finger below that line. Okay, so now I have my blade, I have my ruler, that's all lined up. I'm going to make sure that all of my papers are perfectly stacked on top of each other, so that when I make this cut, I know that I'm going to make the same exact cut through every sheet of paper. So I put my left hand on the ruler because I'm a righty. I'm going to put a lot of pressure on the hand that's holding the ruler so that I know it doesn't slip. If I were to put a little pressure, it might slip. So I'm going to put a lot of pressure on the hand with the ruler. And you can see on my fingers, they're about a 1/2 inch away from the edge of the ruler. By keeping about a finger's length away from the edge, I know that I'm not going to be able to cut my finger with this blade, so it's just safe throughout. When you pick up your blade, I'm not going to put any pressure on it. I'm just going to really lightly and really slowly go all the way down to the edge of the paper. I'm going to angle my blade a little bit towards this ruler so that I know that I'm getting a straight line. If I were to angle it away from the ruler, I might not get a straight line. I might go off a little bit. So if you angle it towards the ruler, you know you're going to get a straight line. I'm going to keep doing this very lightly, very slowly, until I see the edge of the paper start lifting, and then I know that the paper's cut. So you can see here the edge of the paper is lifting. So I'm going to take my ruler off. I'm going to check the cuts that I made. So the orange is great. The blue doesn't look like I made it all the way through. As you can see, I have a little bit of a cut. but it didn't go all the way through. So I can either try and rip it, or I'm going to have to go back in with the ruler and cut it again. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to line it up again, make sure the corners are all touching. I'm going to take my ruler and line it up with that cut that I just made with the X-Acto knife. So I already know where the 1/2 inch mark is. And I'm going to line that up and really lightly again, just keep going over and make those cuts. So I'm going to keep making those cuts until I see that the paper's lifted again. I'm putting pressure on the ruler and no pressure on the hand that's holding the blade. So that blue, made that cut, and as you see, I can just do a little tiny rip and I'm still going to get that nice straight line. With the pink, same thing, little tiny baby rips, and the paper comes right off because it's basically already cut. Now if you didn't get a perfect rip, you can always just rip that part off. We don't need our strips to be a certain length, we just need them to be a certain width because they're all going to be standing up when we make them a quill. So I'm pretty happy with how my strips were cut. They're all a perfect 1/2 inch, which is exactly what I wanted. They don't have to be the same length, just the same width. So I'm going to continue to do this until I have no more paper, and then the next step is we are going to make our quills that we can start to glue onto our contour line drawing that we did of her face.